can you share with us why you accepted to play the game with us this year?
Okay. Okay. This is all awful. It's going to be sounding terrible. I was under pressure from like everyone around me, people that I admired, people that I respected, and I'm new to the area. And so I don't really know anyone in the area. And so my gallery, luckily very soon when I came down here, I got this gallery, Bella Unica, and she was helping me and getting me shows, and she's has so many plans for her gallery, and she wants to do things in Europe and things all over Florida. She's very ambitious. Her name is Natalie Velez. So she told me that I should do it. Then the lady running the thing, Anne-Marie Cash, she said that I should do it. And then finally, I guess that they appealed to me kind of like the wisdom of it. And that argument was given to me by Gina White, like that you don't know anyone, you're new to the area, you're kind of a hermit because all you do is stay in your studio and paint, and you never meet anyone, you just hang around, and yet you want to be part of the community. So she said, this would give you a chance because then you'll paint something and then people will you'll start making new friends, which is true. Even that first night of the gathering, about half the people that were there sent me their email, friended me on Facebook. I'm in contact with them. I made new friends like Brian James and people like this. And so it already started to happen, what Gina White said would happen. And so it was probably out of despair and loneliness and the need to let people know that I was in town, because I'm basically a guy born in Tampa. And so all my contacts tend to be more in Tampa. And so, yet I'm living in St. Pete. And so I thought I should, do the right thing and try to, create a beachhead in St. Pete for my existence, that I'm an artist and I'm working in St. Pete. And so I painted this work of art. Although I've always kind of disliked Breton because I didn't like the fact that young women would always come to him and say that they wanted to make love to him. And they said, please meet me at the Pont Neuf in Paris. Underneath the bridge, we can meet. And he would never go. He would always hide and avoid it. And so then, what's her name? The famous writer, Anais Nin, she yelled at him. And of course, she was married to one of the greatest lovers that ever lived, that guy, Henry Miller. That was her, her lover, who wrote the sexiest novels of the 20th century, The Tropic of Cancer, The Tropic of Capricorn, and then also her writing, The Delta of Venus, is very erotic. And her autobiography, where I'm taking this story from, her autobiography, was very erotic, very, very sensual. Like she dated Antoine Artaud, used to tie her up and beat her and all this kind of stuff. So suddenly, she's hanging out with Breton, and Breton says, whenever girls ask me to meet them, I'm too scared because I'm so famous and everybody wants a piece of me. And so I'd rather just stay alone in my apartment and not have run the risk of being kidnapped or something terrible happening to me. I'm not going to run off at 3 o'clock at night to the Pont Neuf to meet a woman. And so then she was very disappointed. So I thought that kind of went against a lot of what he stands for in terms of, chance operations and being courageous and doing things that are very brave. And then also his theory in his writings, he said, whenever I need a woman, I always go to the part of town where I know there are no women. And then I get a hotel room and I leave the door slightly open. And I hope that the woman will come into the room. And I stay there all night. And then the woman never shows up. And, things like that. Like he was always kind of just trying to... And then he said, the greatest love of my life was a woman called Nadja. And he really didn't know her name. He invented the name Nadja for her. And she was a woman that he saw getting on a tram in Paris. He only saw her for like 23 seconds. And she became the love of his life, the most important love affair that he ever had. All he would talk about was her whenever he got together with his friends. You know, so there's something so extreme about him, and so, in a way, disappointing. You know, that like instead of just running up to the woman as she's getting on the tram and jump on the tram with her and introducing yourself, he just looked at her. And it's kind of like what Immanuel Kant said about beauty, that whenever you see beauty, the proper response is to run away in terror and in fear. Breton has that. Breton has that in his whole aesthetic. And notice that we don't really know a single poem. We know one word that he wrote in a poem, Le Cadavre, but he wrote hundreds of poems, and no one can recite them like we can for all the other surrealists. Like all the other surrealists, we know Jose Rodeiro, my white hand becomes a hotel for the doves of my faithless sky. You know, we know the other surrealist lines. We know Lorca, verde que te quiero verde, green, how much I love you, green, green wind, the ship upon the sea and the horse upon the mountain. You know, we know Lorca, you know, but Breton, we don't really worry about any of his poetry or his lines or his art. His art is an enigma. And yet he led maybe the most important art movement of the 20th century, Surrealism. Like he was the leader of Surrealism, and he ran it like a tyrant. He kicked Dali out. And imagine the courage of that. Kicking the person that the world identifies with Surrealism the most, Dali, was kicked out of the Surrealist movement by Breton. He kicked out Picasso. And there's long, long stories of why he kicked them out. But I can't go in there because it takes at least a half an hour to explain why Dali was kicked out, another half an hour to explain why Picasso was kicked out.
Well, can we have another session at another time? That would be great.
Sure.